widely anticipated memo detailing the findings of Jeffrey Epstein's 2019 death in a New York City prison. The report ruled out any foul play, confirming Epstein died by suicide, and found no evidence that he kept a client list to incriminate those involved in his sex trafficking ring. Now, some of President Trump's far-right allies are frustrated that the administration appears to be ready to move on from the Epstein investigation. John Yang has more. John?
The Trump administration officials had promised to reveal what many of his conspiracy-minded supporters said was the truth about Epstein's death, that he was murdered so he wouldn't implicate powerful people at his trial. Another example, they said, of the corrupt deep state.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services of other lawyers. You found the Heart of Dixie Podcast, number 17. I'm Harry Still. I'm an attorney at law in Daphne, Alabama. We're joined today by Brandon Mosley, reporter and content manager at the Alabama Gazette. How are you today, Brandon?
I'm doing great, Harry. How are you?
Well, besides some technical difficulties and it being a full moon all week, it's been a long one. And so today we have a special guest, Pam Casey, Republican candidate for Attorney General. And Ms. Casey, you are the current district attorney in Blount County. Is that right?
That's right. And thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you.
Well, we had another guest who was supposed to be here with us today, but she called 10 minutes ago and said she was on the phone with the FBI. So they trump us a little bit.
That would take, the FBI takes preference over us.
Yeah, I hate to be bumped by the FBI, but So here is Blount County, and the biggest town in Blount County, I guess the main hub city is R-Oneonta. And it's funny, I had a case in front, it's not funny, but I had a case in front of Judge Stephen King, and he was removed from the bench, and for a year, no one could even answer the phone in his office. Did you know that? And so anyway, I had this $3.5 million civil case up there, and it just languished for like a year because of the JIT going after your circuit judge. So anyway, I'm familiar with all that goings on up there, and I've recently been in is it Judge Reed took over his
Yes,
position?
Greg Reed. Greg Reed was appointed by the governor.
So anyway, Alex Smith and I have dueling appeals going right now in that case. So anyway, I thought
Fun times. Nothing like the appellate court to work your case out.
So
I lived in St. Clair County, and there was a point, I want to say 15 or 20 years ago, where Van Davis was the DA for both St. Clair and Blount County. It was one circuit. I can only imagine the kind of driving he and his office did back then.
That's right. And actually, St. Clair County has 2 courthouses. So technically, he was looking at 3 courthouses. My father-in-law was Judge Alston, who was a judge in the 30th Circuit for many years. And so my husband grew up campaigning over those 2 counties, and he says it's a lot bigger than people realize. So we split, I think, in 2001 or 2 is when that circuit split.
So you were recently named District Attorney of the Year. Who do you have to pay to get that? I'm sorry. That's a real honor.
I used to kid that, that I would never get that award. And then I got it. I think it just goes back to a lot of work we put in our office, prosecuting child sex crimes and prosecuting those cases that a lot of times are a lot harder to prosecute than maybe some others. But, I've been in the association for almost 15 years, and a little, kind of one of the older, we call ourselves the OG. It's kind of crazy that I've already, although I am one of the younger ones, my seniority is pretty high, but, put your time in. And I think that's just the work that we've done and was recognized by other DAs. I was very appreciative of that.
So, Randy Hillman has retired down here to Baldwin County.
Right. I think he's doing some work
from time to time.
I think he's doing some work with the sheriffs now. So,
well, he's the lobbyist for the Sheriff's Association, but he's general counsel for some outfit out of Mississippi that runs the Perdita Beach Resort and spectrum, whatever that is.
Right.
So anyway,
Right.
you have a very brief, I try to find everybody's Wikipedia page, and it doesn't say anything about you on the balcony of the courthouse with disrobed, dragging people around by the hair of their head or anything fun like that. It just says you were the youngest person ever elected to the office. Is that right?
So I was the youngest female elected. I think back in the 70s, there was a male, and I want to think he went on to be, wasn't there a Baxley that went on to be attorney general? I think he was a DA. I think
Couple of
he's the
them.
youngest male. And I was 28 when I ran for office. I was actually in the attorney general's office working as a violent crimes and capital litigation. So I did death penalty work prior to running. I actually ran against the sitting DA, the former DA, and an ADA in 2010 when I ran for that office and actually went into a runoff and then won that runoff, was leading in the runoff and won the runoff. So been reelected in 2016, again in 2022. So I'm in my third term as Attorney General here in Blount County. I mean, not Attorney General, District Attorney, sorry.
Not yet. So you're
Hopefully
the
soon.
field. The field is pretty crowded. So Jay was on the Supreme Court. He resigned. He started raising money the day you could get into it. Catherine Green Robertson is the fair-haired child now over at the current AG's office. And then there's our old criminal procedure professor from Birmingham School of Law that's running, old Pam Casey. What do you think
That's
her
right.
chances are? Are you I haven't seen, are you raising money? You got
We are
a
raising
crew
money.
behind you?
So, there was a straw poll that came out, I guess, a few weeks ago that had us leading over 50%. That was done by the Young Republicans group. I think that goes to as a testament. I've been out since January working hard. I've always been a big grassroots campaigner, even when I ran for DA. And so we do not have $1 million in the bank like maybe my opponents do. But we have more contributions than any other candidate other than Coach Tuberville in terms of actual everyday people, our workers, our law enforcement, our DAs, people who have given our campaign money in every congressional district in the state of Alabama. And I think that just goes to show that money is not going to buy this election and that the AG's office is not for sale. The people of Alabama want a career prosecutor that can be their next top law enforcement official as the Attorney General.
So Brandon, I know you got a question. Go for it.
Steve Marshall has done, over 8 years here, a really good job of suing the Biden administration.
Oh, I was waiting to see what the punchline was about him doing a really good. Yes, admittedly, he has done a yeoman's turn. Go ahead.
I mean, he has sued the Biden administration, which probably needed to be sued a bunch of times. And now he does amicus briefs supporting the Trump administration. Are you going to be as nationally focused as what we've seen out of Marshall, or are you going to have more of a Alabama-centric, maybe a little bit of public corruption, which seems has been on the back burner lately? That may just be my perception, having been through the whole Luther Strange, Mike Hubbard years. This has been a slowdown.
So let me just say, first of all, when I'm elected Attorney General, the people of Alabama are the people who put me there, and so my focus will definitely be on things here at home, but also those things federally that may affect them at home. I've always believed that so many times we talk about that's John Smith's office or Steve Marshall's office, or that's the people's office. The Attorney General's office belongs to the people, and whatever is a priority for them is what will be a priority for our office. If that requires us to support President Trump and things that he is doing at this time, that's something we'll move forward with. And I think people sometimes forget is that there's a potential for this next Attorney General to be in office during 3 potential presidents. So you'll have 2 years left of President Trump, then there'll be an election in 2028 and another one in 2032. And it's crazy to say 2032, does it not? When you start thinking about that we're actually there. But you've got to have an Attorney General that has the ability.
Does Haley's comment come back around? That's what
it's about.
It was like 84, and then like when I'm 103 or something. Yeah, and it's like 10 years away. So yeah, I get it.
And so you need to have an attorney general that has the potential to have to work with or work, to either defend or be offensive. See, there's also, you got to be on the offense or you got to be on the defense, and having the ability, just the work ethic to know what it is that needs to be done. Now, let me say something about public corruption. I'm a prosecutor. That's what I've done my entire career. I have prosecuted mayors. I have prosecuted clerks in our community. I have prosecuted law enforcement officers. I actually have a law enforcement officer in prison right now on child sex crimes. And I have, I have been very vocal, and as a part of my career, is that regardless of who you are, what you've done, we're going to treat everybody the same. If you broke the law, then, and the evidence is there, then we're going to move forward with that. And that would be what it would be at the Attorney General's office. If a local DA cannot handle a case and they come to our office and ask us to handle it, then that's something that we would do, because that's what something we're bound to do by the Alabama Constitution. And so I think there's a wide umbrella of roles that the Attorney General's office does and the Attorney General does. And I think it's important that you have someone who's handled it kind of on a small level, like I have done here in Blount County, who knows what needs to be done on the state level.
So, the duties of the attorney generals, a lot of people don't know that each one of our state agencies has an assistant attorney general assigned to them to act as general counsel.
That's right.
And so, you're not only the chief prosecutor, but you give advice to all of the different state agency heads to keep them out of trouble. Do you have any plans to make any changes in any of those positions? I know that the ethics commission has been a real issue that Brandon and I have beat. We beat this dead horse until nobody even wants to talk about Tom Albritton or the Mabel Amos Trust or any of these other things. But I'll assure you, if Harry were in charge of a trust and he had given a bunch of money to his children and he were a public official, it would not go good for Harry. And Harry, from the time I was 25 until I was 45, I had to fill out a statement of economic interest every year, not because I made so much money, but because I was in a position that it was required. So, anyway, I hope that you'll at least look at the general counsel over there and maybe take some more steps. I know that Steve said some real ugly things, but he really didn't do any ugly things. So, and there are just a few other things I wanted to talk to you about your position, and then we'll kind of move on from this. So right now, the Supreme Court decided in Something Extra versus Mac, which is Lagniappe newspaper. They sued to get the body camera where a deputy sheriff shot Jonathan Victor in the middle of I-10 with a AK-47, or no, it was a 223. Anyway, it was an automatic weapon, and they stitched him up, and they tried to get the body camera, and they said, no, you can't have it. It's a grand jury secret. And so I can understand certain situations where we wouldn't release the body camera, but when it's a police officer shooting, that just seems like something that we would make an exception for. And so this new law that we have that says they get a preliminary hearing just to clear them, how are you going to clear them without showing the video in open court? So I think we've just undone Lagniappe versus Mac. And I'm hoping that there'll be more transparency when it comes to things like body cameras. And I hope you'll be supportive of being transparent.
That's come up here recently with the police officer shooting, the kid from Pickens County at Homewood.
Yeah, so several times I've had situations where maybe there's body cam that there are people who want. I have never had problem turning the body cam over at the appropriate time. I understand what, hold on. Can I give 2 seconds? I have an animal that I hate this, but we're about to have something.
Don't worry. My dog's around here somewhere. I'm sure he's playing with matches in the other room. Well, I'm
Yeah, we don't
sequestered
want
in
any
here.
animals killed during the podcast.
No. Where's Mr. Roo?
I am
bet
so
he's
embarrassed by that. Like my cat
That's not a
has
problem.
decided that he's, anyway. So, we've had situations, especially if there were civil cases that were brought where we want, hey, they want to subpoena my file or they want a copy of my file. First of all, those items belong to the agency. We are not, while we may review them as prosecutors, they don't necessarily belong to the prosecutor's office in terms of, now it may be a part of my file, but when we start talking about open records or being transparent, I think that comes back to what the legislature is going to do in terms of when that's going to be turned over. Now, grand jury, there are a lot of things that you say, well, we're protecting that. And especially there are situations where we don't release autopsies until grand juries or the investigation's ongoing. I really think it's a case by case basis that you have to look at it for the public good. Sometimes, regardless of what you do, whether you turn it over or you don't turn it over, there's going to be people out there with ill intentions about how you handled it or whether you handled it. The public first of all, we have to balance protecting our law enforcement and them doing their job, and also protecting the public understanding and knowing what happened out on the road. And so, we want to make sure that if we have a criminal case, we handle that appropriately. I just think there's a lot of different factors, whether or not there's going to be criminal charges, if there isn't, is there going to be a civil case? And that can be turned over through that civil manner. Now, I've always had the position in criminal and cases where there's a criminal case and a civil case, you are welcome to my file. I just need you to send me with subpoena. And that way that I'm not giving out, well, you gave that video to so-and-so, but you didn't give it to them. So my standard policy for almost 15 years has been, if you want something that's a part of my file and there's an ongoing civil litigation going on, get the court to, get a subpoena, and then we'll go to the judge, and he can put in place those things that he thinks needs to be in place to, whether there's a protective order or not, so that the people involved in the case can see it, but also protects other people that there needs to be a protective order. So I think that's a really wide range answer. I just think it also depends on whether a case has got criminal charges potentially out there versus if there's not, if there's a civil action being pushed or not. So I think there's just a lot of different ways to look at that body cam. I put body cams on my troopers, was one of the first people in the state to put body cams on law enforcement. And those troopers, we purchased those back in 2011 for our troopers in Blount County. And I will tell you that many times those troopers came to me and said, hey, I really appreciate that because you saved my job, because they were arguing that I did something that I didn't do. And I had that body cam to prove that I didn't. What I do think sometimes is body cam doesn't capture an entire scenario or situation. And that's where you sometimes maybe put some officers in potential harm's way by releasing video that doesn't show the entire scenario.
Okay, so I got another one for you. And I hate to single somebody out, but it's an ongoing case, and it's a good example of somebody that ought to get dinged. Okay. And I've never had any trouble with Mr. Billy up in Escambia County, but there were supposedly some grand jury secrets that were leaked by a member of the school board who also happened to be the owner of the newspaper. So they go down and kick the door down at the reporter's house. And anyway, you can go to the Institute for Justice website right now. They're representing them, and they're called the Atmore Four. And, I don't know if that's a JIC issue or a bar issue, but he was going to resign over it. Then he decided not to resign. Now I guess he's going to finish out his term. That's one, and I don't know if that. So is the JIC just for judges, and anything with a district attorney that would be taken up with the Alabama State Bar, or there's special rules?
That's correct.
Okay, so
That's
it's just
correct.
he's just like me. He's got to play by the same rules that all the other attorneys. He's got to follow the rules of professional conduct.
Right. All DAs are subject to the rules of professional conduct. If you filed a complaint against a judge, the state bar would forward that to the Judicial Inquiry Commission to conduct an investigation to determine whether or not that there's sufficient evidence to investigate and or move forward with a complaint.
So public integrity unit, we've already covered that. The next one I want to talk about is the conviction integrity unit, because I had a case down here and it was just, the Rule 32 was just denied. I did all the legwork. We got I can't think of who the firm was in Birmingham that actually did all the appellate work, but essentially,
the Murray Lawrence case.
The Murray Lawrence case. Our sheriff made his bones putting this guy in prison, and our current DA was the judge. So there was no will down here for Hausmack and Bob Wilters to crap can a case that made their careers. Okay, so we had that going against us, and so then anyway, this is one of those cases where if you retried it today, you would not be able to convict him on the evidence because the only evidence was the testimony of a co-conspirator, and they had no physical evidence tying the guy to the murder or the transportation of the body or anything else. Anyway, that's just I spent about 3 years on it for nothing, for it to have been a big nothing burger, and it was salacious, and it should have been all over the front page of the paper if we had one. You know what I mean? So the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick is THC now being a Class C felony in Mobile, Alabama. If you're caught with marijuana, they don't even take you into custodial arrest. They write you a ticket, and the ticket is your summons to court. So how do you balance pot in Mobile? You get a ticket, and up in Blount County, it's a Class C felony, and Pam Casey is going to put you in jail for 5 to 10 years for something that I bought June 30th.
Well, let me say, first of all, Pam Casey is not going to put you in jail. If you break the law, you put yourself in jail. So I tell people that sometimes. I mean, come on, Harry, you know that if somebody gets a UPOM 1 charge, they're not necessarily going to go to jail. Okay. It depends on their priors, depends on what the sentencing guidelines say. And you know that a lot of those bonds depending on each county, depends on how, what the bond set at, things of that nature. I saw that happen, and we saw that happen. When I was an undergrad in Memphis, they did a lot of those sign your own bond release forms. And actually, every sheriff in the state of Alabama has the authority to agree to what a bond is or what's appropriate for a bond and let people sign their bond.
So Pam, what this just did was so since 2018, if a cop smells marijuana, they go, I guess they bought it at the store. It's not probable cause. But now you've reopened the door. If I want to get into somebody's house, all I got to do is tap Brandon and say, I think I smell marijuana, don't you, Brandon? I sure do. Well, by God, we can go in there and look for something this big under the couch. And we don't need a warrant. This is the magic ticket for law enforcement to get into your car and search it and get into your house.
But that's always been the case in terms of probable cause. If you smell marijuana on a traffic stop, in terms of I smell marijuana.
If they were driving in control of the car.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's an automobile exception to the requirement of a search warrant. And so, we probably disagree on a lot.
Well, we disagreed. Look, this had nothing to do with public safety. It had everything to do with the grocers and the beverage people coming down here and throwing piles of money at our legislators. And all they had to do was say, that woman got sucked up in that jet engine. Thank God. Oh my goodness. She was high on this THCA stuff, which she could have smoked 8 years ago. It stays in your system so long. And all the kids getting a hold of it. Pam Casey, I don't give a damn how many drug dealers you put in jail. The bad kids at R-Oneonta High School got garbage bags full of weed if they want it. The bad kids are always going to get their hands on it. And so this whole thing about we're protecting the children from the one drug they can't overdose on. No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that's bull crap. That nobody was selling this stuff to little kids. And if they were, it had been all over the news, and it wouldn't just been coming out of legislators' mouths.
Harry, you may say that nobody overdoses on marijuana, but how many people who died of a fentanyl overdose started with marijuana?
I don't care. That's everybody's an adult, and you have personal responsibility, just like when you get behind the wheel of a car or anything else. And, if we want to live in the kindergarten of Alabama, where I'm going to get in trouble and pulled over for having my cell phone in my hand. This is ridiculous. And if you're another one of these, there ought to be a law Republicans, I'm just going to scream running from the room. I mean, thinking we're going to legislate our way into utopia is fictitious.
No, I don't.
And-
But I think we do have a duty as a society to make sure we're protecting our children from different things that
Good.
potentially harm them. Well,
Go
number
in there
one,
and check on your kids when we get off the podcast, right?
well, and
That's how you
number
protect your children, not the state of Alabama. And
Yeah,
we
no,
were going to get rid of the ABC board, and now we've just quadrupled their job. They're in charge of vapes, THC,
No, we
all this
thought about getting rid
enforcement.
of the ACBC board and decided not to.
Yeah, too many
Yeah.
of our cousins work there or something. I don't know. But anyway, we're just going to disagree on the kindergarten that is the state of Alabama. And all these, there ought to be a law Republicans. And Brandon and I have them on all the time. I'm as nice as I can be to them. But when they say, oh, well, you know, I heard about that kid that got a hold of that THC. And I'm sitting there going, oh, man, okay.
We do have an issue where there are some counties and some DAs where if the sheriff, finds, people running, I mean, if you put up a casino sign in Blount County, they're probably going to shut you down. You put up a casino sign in Jefferson County, there's a whole bunch of them in operation. Has the AG?
look, I've not been in those casinos, Brandon. Have you been in those in Jefferson County?
I went to 300 of them when I ran for AG last time.
But I've driven by there. Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
I'm not saying
Yes.
they're not casinos. I'm just saying, I'm not being disrespectful in any way. If they put one up in Blount County, we would inquire as to, I'm sure, law enforcement. And I think it comes back to this, Harry and Brandon. I think y'all, we prosecutors prosecute the law. Do we all agree with that? At the end of the day, I can't do my job unless there is an investigative agency that moves forward with a case. Okay. I am not aware of any rogue DAs out there opening up investigations into people without some type of complaint and a law enforcement officer, an officer calling and saying, "Hey, I got this going on."
But you would acknowledge that certain laws, like the state's constitutional ban on gambling and the state law of marijuana, is enforced a little bit differently in Pam Casey's territory in Blount County than it is across the county line in Jefferson. Without throwing any stones at Jefferson here.
Yeah, I don't want to disrespect Mr. Carr in any way. I maybe we've not had as many issues with that as they have. But we are going to enforce the law as it's written, as officers come in, and that's my role as district attorney to do that, and that would be my role as the attorney general to enforce those laws.
But I think at one point here, like in the last couple of years, somebody did a number and there was like 54 casinos operating illegally in the state that you could identify. Marshall has shut down some of them. I think he raided like 10 of them like about 2 weeks ago in Jefferson. Is this an area where the AG needs to go to the legislature and say, hey guys, I need more resources, or to the governor and say, you need to unleash Aaliyah and maybe enforce our ban on gambling? If the legislature wants to pass a gambling amendment, the earliest that would be on the ballot, I'm guessing, would be 2028. But right now, outside of the Porch Creek Indians and maybe some dog tracks, there are dozens of entities operating openly in direct violation of the Alabama Constitution. What is your opinion on that as AG?
Well, first of all, I would need the evidence. I'm not saying it's not happening, but I'm not going to comment on,
a case that may be developing
or I'm not, it's kind of like me playing Monday morning quarterback with what another DA did in a case when, like people do that with me. Well, you didn't see the file. You didn't see what was going on. You didn't see what we had. You didn't see what our weaknesses were. You didn't see what our strengths were. And so I never want to do that on, if I'm the attorney general, we will enforce the law as written. And if the legislature wants to change the law, then they will move forward and change the law. Because I think so many people forget that at the end of the day, that's who makes the law, and they are representative of the people of the state of Alabama. Now, do they always make the decisions people in the state of Alabama might make? I don't know. I don't think that's always the case. But I do think that it should be, and what is in the best interest of the people of the state of Alabama, that they are doing, and when they're passing and making laws.
Okay, so let's move on. One of the new laws that I'm sure you've prosecuted people before up in R-Oneonta is this new law that if you give somebody fentanyl and they die, you're charged with manslaughter. This happened this past week in Gulf Shores. As a matter of fact, talking about, I'm aware of 2 deaths where the same person gave people fentanyl and she hadn't been charged at all. So anyway, I'm assuming that this is another one that that wouldn't rise to the level of the attorney general, would it? Unless there was some kind of conflict with the district attorney's office, I wouldn't imagine.
Yeah, that, or you can supersede. So the AG has the authority to supersede a DA in their cases. So they have the authority to go in and take a case away from the DA if they don't feel like that, justice is being served. And so that's not something we would necessarily see unless it was a situation where there was a recusal. And generally, what we would see is that's a case that's probably already even been charged. And so once the officer charges it, the office realizes maybe they have a conflict, and they would ask the AG's office to step in and to handle that case.
We already talked about this. Let's see here. Oh, this is our other attorney that was going to be with us today. I don't need to go over that the world is round with you, do I?
No, absolutely not.
We interviewed a guy who was certain that the world was flat, so I had a couple of
that is a controversial issue in Alabama in 2026, apparently.
Hard to believe. So I usually don't tout other people's podcasts, but the Landia newspaper this week, their team discusses Orange Beach Mayor Tony Kennon's second office and a police call to it last year. Are y'all familiar with this story at all?
Yeah.
In the wee hours of Labor Day last year, an employee of the Pleasure Island Tiki Bar told Orange Beach Police in the residence parking lot she had just seen a naked man on the balcony of the city's Coastal Resources Office building right across the way there. So anyway, the second floor that, all up under it is parking. And I went up there to see if I could get a video of, one of my clients' brothers drowned. And so I went over there and I took the tour of the building. They showed me where the cameras were and all that kind of stuff. And I asked while I was there, I said, whose office is that down there? And they said, oh, Mayor Kennon uses it sometimes. So I can confirm that he has an office in this building. Now, getting on to the second part of this. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, y'all will remember 6 years ago, Mayor Kennon was in all this controversy because he somebody claimed that he got into a fight, and I don't know that he was ever charged with anything. And then recently, I deposed the chief of police about one of his recent cases, and shortly thereafter, he announced that he was going to be retiring after starting as a dispatcher 33 years ago and making his way all the way up to chief. And all I can say, Chief Brown, is good riddance.
I think you were too mean to him in your deposition, Harry.
I was too mean to him. I asked him if he's the one that marked Furman the gun, and they got up at. So have you ever in your life been in a civil deposition where the attorney for the other side says, that's it, we're leaving, and gets up and walks out? That's what happened April 24th, 2025. And then, of course, 2 police officers showed up and escorted me and my client from their parking lot and followed us all the way to the state park when they broke off their convoy. So I have a little different perspective on Orange Beach than most people do. And this is a case where, let me get this straight, the person who died, who the city didn't investigate his death, was allegedly involved in a drug racket that the FBI investigated back in 2014 and 2015, where Danny Williams and Tony Kennan were the object of those investigations, according to, if you go back and look at the warrant applications and stuff, they sure as hell ain't all for Danny Williams. So
All right,
anyway,
Harry, let's
speaking
wait
of
just a
drownings,
second.
yes, ma'am.
Let's wait just a second. So, and I'm not putting you on the spot with this when I ask you, do you have anything nice to say about law enforcement?
I do. There's one of
I'm
my
not
best
being mean.
friends.
I'm just saying,
it's
like,
fine. You got to understand, Pam, that in 2016, I had a client's child hanging himself with a seatbelt while a passenger in a moving car. And then when they assigned someone to investigate his death, I deposed him several years later in a civil suit. And I said, so did anybody ever tell you that that young man was a snitch for the Baldwin County Drug Task Force? And he said, oh, there's no way, Mr. Steele. So then I subpoenaed the file, and in fact, he was. So do I have anything nice to say? I used to have all kinds of nice things to say. And then when I came out and said that, my security pass to the courthouse got revoked. And there were all kinds of my colleagues who could have come to my defense, and they all kept their mouth shut because they're scared to death of Hoss Mack. So do I have anything nice to say about him?
We moved on.
Yes, we've moved on. We have a new sheriff who was an eye detector of the last sheriff. So anyway, speaking of drownings, July has the highest number of drownings deaths. And here's some water safety tips. So basically is don't drink and boat.
Well,
so did anybody know? Oh,
everybody's got the 4th of July week, and that's when people take their vacation. So you have a whole bunch of people in the water that normally aren't in the water. And that's sort of a recipe for disaster.
So did anybody know that Walker County had a public defender's office?
I did.
I didn't. So anyway, I didn't know it until it burned to the ground the other day. So were they in there smoking some ganja?
I know who. They just made 2 arrests on that. I know the gentleman who owns that building. It's really a sad situation for him. He was one of my former law students back in the day. What year did you where'd you graduate, Harry?
2007. I think that's right. I sat for the 2009 bar.
Did you know Nick Sparks?
I did.
That's
his building? Oh, that's too bad. Oh, well, I was making light of it, and it's somebody I know whose building burned down. That's just
insurance pays off.
Yeah. So, Pam, are you thinking about joining America's Party?
I don't think so.
I don't know that that's going anywhere. But apparently, there's some people running for office in Alabama that want to make us the Bitcoin haven kind of like the Bahamas.
I think Elon needs to focus on getting the political situation straight in South Africa and then worry about the United States.
Right. Once he solves that one and wins his Nobel Peace Prize, we'll start listening to him.
Then he can move on to bigger game.
Okay, so the big one this week is so look, if you wanted to build in a fail-safe so you can slip in and kill someone, they have a minute window apparently built into this camera system so that you can go in and gank somebody, and as long as you can do it in 60 seconds, nobody can see you. So
I will say I've worked with videos for years. I was kind of shocked at this. I mean, I'm not saying it is or isn't true. I've just never seen it happen, and I've looked at tons of security camera.
Okay, so I was the county manager in Etowah County when Mario Santobi escaped. Do you remember the cop killer from Mississippi? Mario.
My father-in-law sentenced him to die.
Yep. So anyway, he just up and vanished like the Shawshank Redemption. And it turns out they turned the cameras off and he walked out the damn Sally Port. He didn't escape. Somebody let him go. So anyway, this is my favorite hat of all times. And of course, Pam Bondi, after telling numerous people that she had thousands of videos that she needed to review of children being raped, it turns out that they must have been raping themselves because there were no clients, Brandon. I mean, Epstein is just a greedy man. He wants all these little girls for himself. And Ghislaine Maxwell just went to jail because she's a madam or something. I don't know. But yeah, it all seems very unlikely. So to throw us all off the trail, Kash Patel announces that we're going after Crooked, Brennan, and Comey. As if they needed to tell us they were crooked. They're the former FBI director. Anyway, this is an interesting one. The FBI, under the direction of Kash Patel and Deputy Director, podcaster Dan Bongino, are back to the basics, locking up criminals, cleaning up America's streets. And the thing that I really like is how they all take their patches and badges off and cover their faces. That's my favorite part of federal law enforcement, is they all have their faces covered so we don't get to know who they are when they're violating our rights. Now,
But
what's
like
real
G.I.
power,
Joe, they always had the little guys. That had the mask.
like Cobra Commander. He always had his face covered.
Yeah,
So
you know,
anyway,
G.I. Joe and Cobra, they both.
but
had
the
the
real
mask.
power in the
It's kinda
world
cool.
is when you get sacked from being an official and you die 30 seconds later. I mean, that is when you say, I want this guy gone, they just meant we want him fired, right? But he meant gone.
Yeah, there are a number of suspicious deaths among high-ranking Russians over the last 20 years.
So anyway, I don't know what grandma did to the Russians, but they blew her damn bike up and damn near killed everybody in the pizzeria up in New York City. So I have an electric motorcycle that goes like 150 miles an hour. I had no idea I was sitting on a bomb. So now I'm thinking, as if a motorcycle weren't dangerous enough, I'm now riding around on a lithium-ion bomb for who knows how long. So did you see the Yemen rebels sink the whose flagship was that?
Yeah, I saw
Was it
that.
a Greek? Yeah, it was a Greek ship. Man, that thing went down like, who knew that something could sink that fast?
We
wasn't like
need to go
Titanic.
back to the days like in, the 17th century where, if you have a ship out there, it's got like cannons on there, so you can just blast whoever comes along.
That seems fair. I mean, a Gatling gun, or they're
Yeah, I
using
mean, just
water cannons.
But hey,
a
don't
couple
they
50
have those at
calibers
the
on there.
beach? Don't they have those at the beach that come by like boom, boom?
Right, the pirate ship with it shoots dry ice
Yeah, like
out of
the
the cannon.
pirate
That's
ship.
what-
Hey, you couldn't tell a pirate ship from a regular merchant ship back then because everybody had guns bristling.
So we always like to do a little spot where we encourage people to come down and enjoy the natural beauty of the most beautiful place in the whole world that's being screwed over by developers, Baldwin County. But one of the places they can't touch is the state park at the end of Fort Morgan, which is, of course, Fort Morgan. And if you haven't been there, you really ought to go see it. And offshore right out here is, what is that? The Tecumseh that got sunk by mines, and it's just laying right out there in about 30 feet of water. But you can't dive it maybe 3 or 4 times a year where it's clear enough and it's just jagged metal down there and you'll get pushed into the wreck by the current. So anyway, I wouldn't recommend diving the Tecumseh, but if you're an
I
expert,
like to watch
it's a really
Jacques
cool wreck.
Cousteau on TV, not actually pretend I am Jacques Cousteau.
Well, I've got like 700 dives under my belt, but I'm not bad enough to go diving that crazy stuff and get cut in half. Or if you ever been out to Dixie Bar, if you want to catch a shark in Alabama, go put a piece of mullet on there about that long and a big hook and throw right black tips all over the place, tiger sharks all over the place. So I don't dive Dixie Bar, and I haven't floundered it since I saw a hammerhead with a damn head about that big swam up to me one night while I was gigging flounder, and that was my last trip down Fort Morgan at night. So did everybody hear it? So boy, you got to give it to them A-Post guys. First, it was the FBI agent that raped his partner, who then became a state trooper and raped an 11-year-old girl. And so now we got guys shooting their damn fingers off. So
anytime you handle a firearm, you can have an accident here. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. You got to be careful with it.
so
Well, let me say this. those, I work with troopers. I kind of kidded with one of them yesterday. I said, ask the other one on a group text says, hey, is, Jimmy okay? Just kidding. I enjoy, those guys are great guys. And, there's a bad apple in every bushel, whether it's lawyers or reporters or troopers or DAs or whatever. So we have to be thankful for our state troopers and what they do for us.
Yeah, I can name an attorney or two that went off the reservation.
That's why they call them thumb busters, Brandon. You bust yourself in the thumb with them. Okay, so two drivers shoot each other in a road rage incident. So if you've ever been driving south from Birmingham at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when you get to the tanks in Pelham, you stop. And everybody's is on, you're looking over at the people next to you and cars are moving like this. And I can imagine somebody cutting somebody else off, but I can't imagine gunplay on the interstate right here in front of Buffalo Wild Wings on I-65. Like, what
we missed that by just a little bit that day. Was that Wednesday?
Yeah.
So we were coming north. I mean, because I asked my husband, I said, wait, did that just happen? He said it had to have happened right after we came through.
That's nuts. Brandon, if
If
some guy drew down on you,
me, he claimed that I moved without the right of way. And I mean, he was, doing the finger and all this and just freaking out. I mean, it's like I slid my handgun out of its drawer, and we didn't walk around in the chamber. But in case he went from just acting crazy to doing something crazy. Yeah, we were ready to roll. I mean, this is Alabama. Everybody has guns. And
thank God.
Hopefully not on the highway, though.
Okay, so 79-year-old Pale City man.
I told you everybody has guns around here.
Yeah, well, like you said, somebody's trying to repo this old man's truck, and by God, you're not getting it without a fight. You start shooting at the guy.
A friend of mine was a repo guy. And I know one time he had to go to the hospital because a man bit him and did, some damage. He got bit in the chest by a dude. Not the dude's dog, by the dude.
Like I said, state trooper and repo man,
chest?
2 jobs I don't want to do.
Yes, I don't know why you would do that to someone, but he did.
He must have been a
So
short
they got
fella.
to fighting over the car, and in the fight, went to biting.
Let's see what. Oh, and the most
I thought Steve
ridiculous
was getting
story
new
of the year. Bruce Pearl is going to run for U.S. Senate. Isn't that what we need? Another guy that's not from Alabama representing Alabama because he is politically what? And have you met Bruce Pearl? Not my favorite person. We had him down here for our United Way banquet, and I was on the board, and he had lunch with us, and he kind of seemed annoyed, and he kept looking at his watch, and it's just like, hey, asshole, you signed up for this. At least act like Anyway, hey, he may be the second coming, but
current talk about Bruce Pearl running for Senate.
Well, he should have been nicer to the United Way people in Baldwin County if he wanted to vote.
The issue he might have is he did make a contribution to Shamari Figures last year, who was running against Caroline Dobson, and Dobson's the Republican. The Alabama GOP does not look kindly on that sort of thing.
Oh, no.
If Bruce wants to run as a Republican, there might be some pushback from the state elections committee.
And wasn't this? But wasn't this Barkley's idea like 20 years ago? He said, "I'm going to be."
Yeah, Barkley was an NBA player and talking about being governor, but he is so good as an NBA analyst that they're willing to pay him $10 million for that. Hey, he makes a lot more money for Turner, or I think next year it's going to be for ESPN. Then a governor will make in their entire 8 years.
You don't want to be senator, do you?
Me?
Okay.
No.
So, possible breakthrough in search for dozens allegedly killed by rogue cops. So, Brandon, the
I haven't
Philippines
done this
kill
story,
people
but I've
for
been following
marijuana.
it.
I know that much.
Apparently, in the Philippines, cockfighting is like the national sport. It's a major deal in the Philippines. And apparently, some people, I don't know how you do this, but they were rigging the cockfights. And they had a ring that was, found to be rigging the cockfights. Instead of going to law enforcement and, whatever, I guess they use a DA or AG or something in the Philippines to bring rigging the cockfighting charges, an online cockfight operator was so incensed by this rigging of the fights that he hired mercenaries who wear badges to go out and kill the people allegedly involved in the alleged rigging of the cockfights. And there's over 100 people dead, is my understanding, and they're trying to find the bodies. They're like they're finding bones of them in a lake out there.
So when we talk about dirty
Philippines
cops,
have had
all
some
things in
issues.
proportion.
They probably, I think the biggest mistake the Philippines ever made was wanting independence. You know how much money that place would be worth? It was the 51st state. I mean, it had its chance. They
Could have been
decided to
Hawaii.
go their own way, in World War II. But
Yeah, so when we're talking about
Things have
bad
gone downhill
cops,
for them.
there's all proportional, right? So does everybody know about America's Attorney General Ken Paxton? His wife filed for divorce on biblical grounds. That doesn't sound good, Brandon. Tell us what
Ken has
biblical
had some
grounds are.
issues in his time as AG. I mean,
He's
I
had a
like
lot
a
of
lot of what he's
issues.
done, but there's like a scandal after a scandal after a scandal.
It's something about some guy remodeling his house. I remember the impeachment I watched on C-SPAN was pretty interesting, but it kind of fell flat, his impeachment. And
Yeah,
so
I'm
anyway,
regretting I'm not covering Texas politics right now. They got a lot going on out there.
she I mean, she didn't shoot herself in another state with his sidearm, I don't reckon. So,
And we're not going there.
and we're not going there. Okay, well, Pam, we've reached the end of our stories. Is there anything that you'd like the people of Alabama to know about your candidacy? Can you tell us about your website and your campaign, please?
Yeah, so I really want the people of Alabama to just think about when you're getting ready to vote for your next attorney general, your top law enforcement official, the person that represents the people of the state of Alabama and the state's interest. You want an experienced prosecutor, a person has spent their entire career working to protect our children, to protect our families, and making sure they're safe. And I'm the only candidate in this race that has been a prosecutor and who has fought for our family, our children. I tell people when you go to bed at night, there's three things you want to know: your kids are safe, your family's safe, and your business and your home safe. And if you want a prosecutor that can do that, then I'm the person for you. You can find us on Facebook at Pamela Casey for Alabama Attorney General. Also, you can follow my regular page, Pamela Casey, and we'll have our website up next week with our first TV ad, PamelaCasey.com.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Brandon, do you have any advice for Miss Casey coming down to
I
Montgomery?
don't give political advice. I report. That is above my pay grade.
And let me just
Thank you so
also
much for being on.
let me say one last thing. We just need to remember that this office is not for sale. Okay. It should be an election, not an auction that goes to the highest bidder, and those bidders being outside interest, out of state interest. It should be the people of Alabama deciding who their attorney general should be. And when you look across the course of my contributions, like I said earlier, we have that grassroots support from people that matters. And that's what we will take into this primary.
Well, Pam, all I can say is, you've taught criminal procedure, you know what you're doing, everybody knows you're competent, and we wish you the best. We're not going to endorse anybody, but obviously, I've heard good things about you, and we're glad to have you on. And if you after the primary, if you'd like to come back and see us or come back anytime or have something you want to talk about.
We'll probably have you back on before the election. This election is not until May.
Oh, that's true.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
Just give me
thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
You too.